him being the kind of person that he is, being charismatic and being a solid leader, allows for the other guys on his team to kind of just take the edge off potentially. So maybe guys like Derke and all that, they're able to just be more comfortable around him and in these environments just simply because of his presence and his leadership style. So I think if anything, Boaster just had like a really great presence. And you know, even obviously everyone, like the fans, us and the other teams he competed against, they probably saw a great side of it. But can you imagine being on his team, right? Like you get to actually firsthand benefit from this 24/7. So I think that, you know, he deserves a lot of credit for how he was able to enable his players to showcase their maximum potential at this tournament.
And we gotta keep talking fRoD about Derke here, because this man, right?
Yeah.
Not only does he just pop off and look great, he is a player what I feel like is only going to get better from here, right? He's one of these ones where I look at and think for the future, he is just going to grow into an absolute monster, like one of the future superstars we have.
So like what you see clearly with Fnatic is Boaster is utilizing the talent that he has and maximizing them on some of the agents, for example. Like Derke is just going hard with the Jet and the Op and doing different things, allowing him to play loose within a certain system and then maximizing the individual talent that he's got on the team. Because if not, like, you know, Derke is so good, you don't want to limit him, right? So I think when you look at like the Liquid side, for example, when they're kind of limiting, maybe focusing too much on composition, agent necessity, over gunplay, over the talent, over that superstar that you may have, or maybe you don't know that you have in someone like Derke, you need to at least give them that ability to kind of see like what they have in that potential. Because even though the meta and the abilities are something that's very, very important in VALORANT, you know, gunplay kind of does reign supreme. Because if you see what, you know, someone like Scream could do on something like Sage, I mean, it's unbelievable. And you wouldn't think Sage can hard carry in this kind of meta, but you put Scream on it, you can. Maybe if you throw 10s on it, you probably can too, right? So this is where it's like, why make it harder for those guys, right? Like give them the agent that allows them to just absolutely dominate the scene. And that was kind of a little disappointing for me, where we got to see Scream versus other top talents like Derke and Tens, for example, and he was maybe more limited in having an agent that he had to play a little bit more reserved, where some of these guys are just styling and wilding on him, you know.
And Mitch, right, one thing we still, when you're talking about Derke, is you've got to look at like the MVP performances he put in there, right? This is something where again you come back to thinking, okay, yes, it's not a crowd on this LAN environment, but he didn't seem phased by anything here, right? We talked about the celebration, talked about what goes on, but this is a man that picked up big MVPs from the talent that were looking at it all, right?
I think not only that, it's also the depth that was displayed by him. I think that Sentinels put a lot of work into dealing with Derke, certainly in the early stages of rounds, and the adaptation from Derke to no longer play. I mean, we saw maps where he didn't pick up the operator even once, didn't attempt to go for those dual. Sentinels reciprocated with Tens, I think, on the Haven, the first Haven they played. He picked up the op once, got a pick onto Derke down middle on Haven, and that was it. Op was gone from that point because they lost the round, or they lost a lot of weapons and had to rebuy, and they decided to stay away from it. And again, a sign of a close game, that they didn't want to just risk the economy. But the important thing for me was that Derke put up, firstly, insane stats, considering if you look at the grand final, on the defense he was weak. I will give you that. On split especially, he had a really, really rough time. But on the attack, he was sacrificing himself for the team. He was playing Jet as you should, as I think Scream was probably the first one to show that within Europe. When you're picking up Jet, you're not playing the operator, you're dashing in, you're giving the openings for your team to follow in and trade you, or maybe for you to trade them depending on where the enemy flicks their crosshair. And when you're in that role, you are not expected to win opening duels. I heard some criticism of him like, oh, he was like 5 for 10 in opening duels. It's like, yeah, if you look at how he plays, that makes a lot of sense.